This is period one, and we're reading The Trial by Franz Kafka, and so now we're going to discuss it.
Alright, so the first question is analyze the novel's first sentence, paying particular attention to the use of passive voice. He was arrested, and the lack of clear information about the origin of this slander, someone, or the nature of his guilt, anything truly wrong. In what ways does the sentence establish a pattern for Joseph K's passivity, and for what happens to him as in the novel as a whole?
So, pretty much the book starts off with Kay getting arrested, and I think the readers are put into that situation suddenly, just as Franz Kafka is. So it shows how it disrupted his life and how we weren't ready for it either, like he was. Since the usual motion of a book or whatever is it begins and there's the climax and then there's the conclusion.
So it starts immediately, right when it starts, there's already action going on, which brings the reader in.
Yeah, we're thrown right in the middle of a situation where we don't know why it's happening or any of the background behind it. Even Kay is surprised about that he's getting arrested.
But even though it's like we're thrown into it, it doesn't seem very realistic because the guards are kind of, dim-witted, and it just doesn't seem like it's actually going on, or if it's a legitimate arrest.
Yeah, like the guards are they're really submissive. They seem sort of like people just taking orders from other people, and Kay takes it sort of personally when Kafka was describing the first chapter.
And it also shows the limitations of the bureaucracy, where you have the underlings who don't really know what they're doing, or they only know their procedure and the basics of it. So when Kay asks them questions, they don't really know how to answer, and it shows how everything is kind of weird about this whole arrest, and almost as if it's unreal, or as if it's being staged by some underground government or whatever.
And also we never know, well, at the beginning we don't know why he's being arrested, and that also leads us to the question of if it's legitimate or not, if someone's framing him. Like he even questions if it's his friends or his co-workers who are playing a joke on him. We don't know if it's a joke or if it's true, if it's legitimate or not.
Do you think that the guards actually do know what's happening and that they're keeping it from him, or they just don't know and they're following orders?
They expressed that. They said that they weren't allowed to talk about it.
It doesn't seem legitimate.
And then also on page 7, there's a quote. So there's been no mistake after all our department, as far as I know, and I know only the lowest level doesn't seek out guilt among the general population, but as the law states, is attracted by guilt and has to send us guards out. That's the law. So they're saying almost as if they the people who feel guilty, then they're being arrested. That's the law. Instead of the people break the law and then they feel guilty and then they get arrested.
Yeah.
So the whole thing's kind of weird and unusual.
That brings us right into the next question. Describe the men who arrest and interrogate Joseph K. Are they policemen? What authority do they represent? When K questions his arrest, he is told, "There's been no mistake. Our department doesn't seek out guilt among the general population, but as the law states, is attracted by guilt and has sent us guards out. That's the law." In other words, guilt seems to precede an actual criminal act.
Yeah, so he's definitely done something illegal that isn't expressed to the reader, and it just leaves a big question mark for the reader to sort of guess. We don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I wrote in one of my blogs. I just kept pulling me, even though it didn't seem very real. It kept pulling me to keep reading. I wanted to find out what would happen next, or what was the reason for this illegitimacy.
What I think that was really interesting is that Kay doesn't even know what he did wrong.
Does he though?
I
never know.
Yeah, we never know.
You kind of feel like he does know, and he's trying to go around it, but at the same time, you don't know.
The whole book seems a little murky with all the eyes. Literally every single book online that you look up for the trial has eyes on it, or something suspicious with a mystery or something. So really anything could happen.
I think also the cover, it's as if you're constantly being watched. Even because everybody has their faults, it's just like human nature. So it's almost as if you're allowed no faults, and if you do feel guilty or do something wrong, then you're going to get punished for it. And also, Kay, he seems to know less about his arrest than, say, other people in the story, like Fraulein Bernster, who was his neighbor, and that's the woman that the guards used to arrest. They used her room, so I think she knows more about the child than Kay does.
Yeah, maybe she's the one who arranged it.
Yeah.
Never
Who
know.
knows? Alright, this leads us into our next question. Why does Joseph K. decide to play along with his arrest, even though the men who arrest him never show him any proof of their authority, and he thinks it might be a farce? Does he behave as if he had a guilty conscience?
I mean, he goes along with it, but he's also, like Kafka tells us, that he thinks it might be the coworkers playing a joke on him, and he was saying how he didn't want to like show his hand that he knew, but I don't think he actually was taking it seriously.
He kind of has like a dual character. Where, like he's presented as this like successful, wealthy, intelligent man, but at the same time he's kind of laid back about the whole situation. He's not really freaking out. He's just kind of wondering what's going on, but he's not. He's like at the beginning he's kind of portrayed as like strictly business, but then you don't know he's kind of laid back, so you don't really know what kind of personality he is.
I don't think he's really behaving as if he has a guilty conscience either. He seems sort of just like, as Lido said, like indifferent about the whole situation, and at the same time he doesn't know what's going on, you know. So I don't think he really has any idea what's happening.
Okay. Chapter Initial Inquiry. How is Kay
This is the second chapter.
How is Kay summoned to his first inquiry? By whom? Describe the part of the city and the strange building in which it takes place. What are the social conditions of the people living here? Describe the meeting that takes place in the large hall and what Kay gradually learns about the court. Kay accuses the examining magistrate of giving secret signals to someone in the audience. Is this true? What happens to the washerwoman? How would you characterize Kay's frame of mind when he leaves the assembly?
So pretty much what we were talking about before, how the guards are they don't really know what they're doing, and they're giving like half-witted instructions, and they're just kind of following the motions. That kind of leads us into the initial inquiry when he goes to this random place when he wasn't even summoned, and he enters this room after spending about 2 hours looking for the room, and he just finds it out of luck. And pretty much it's a living room that's turned over into kind of like a courtroom, and there's this magistrate, and he's pretty much looking over everybody, and it's just giving out signals for people to react. And the room's divided into two, and I think Kay just kind of outsmarts them all just by since he's not really following like robotic motions like everybody else, he knows what he's doing, and he's like using reason to figure it out.
It was sort of dreamy, this scene, because it was so weird. Everything that was happening seemed like it was questionable. It didn't really make sense, and nothing was like, how do you say, like strict. Nothing was, what was the word we were using? It was on the vlogs. A lot of the season were like structured. It wasn't structured. Everything was kind of like unorganized, and it didn't seem legit.
Yeah, I kept on reading it over because it didn't sound like a real courtroom, a real situation. Instead of being at a courthouse, it was in a random apartment building where he was describing like people outside and the situation around it. It was just.
It wasn't professional.
Kay is described in the beginning as being someone very professional, very successful, and the way he went about going to his inquiry, he was really sort of just like laid back about it, and he didn't really care, and he was just, you know. And like what Camille said about how it was like a living room, it's sort of like fishy, you know, like how it's just a living room turned into like a courtroom, and some guys giving a bunch of people signals for them to react. So
Also, just like the oddness of the entire thing is summed up by the washerwoman when she goes into the back of the room and has sex with one of the men, and it's just all kind of like really odd and unusual.
Yeah, she was like a little slut of it.
But that's the same woman. So Kay returns, I think 2 weeks or 1 week later, the following Sunday.
Yeah, it was
And there wasn't the court then, and he met up with the washerwoman, and the washerwoman was even like, "Oh, I'll join your side, kind of, I'll help you out, I'll give you some hints." And it's it's definitely not government structure, because if it was, then it wouldn't be turning out like this.
That's what caught my eye about it. It was weird.
What I thought though was weird that is he went back to the courthouse without even like them calling him or anything. He just assumed that he had to go back. That was weird.
Yeah, so just everything's so unstructured in this whole story. It's going to be interesting to see how it turns out, just if we even learn what his accusations are, why he's being arrested.